and someplace warm for her to wait for repairs. She flipped open her phone and stared for a moment at the photo of her son on the display. He was smiling, happy and free of cares, just as every toddler should be. She ran the tip of her index finger over his cherubic face, and then frowned as she realized that her phone had no service. After forcing open the car door and stepping into the knee-deep snow, she raised the cell high in the air and turned in a semicircle. Still nothing. She stuffed the phone into the pocket of her parka and cursed. The mild oath floated away on a puff of white air. She could wait for help, she supposed, although it was doubtful another driver would be foolish enough to be out in these conditions. Only desperation had forced her to be. She glanced down the road in the direction she'd come. She'd passed a gas station when she'd unwisely decided to leave the interstate, as road conditions there had worsened. That was 3 miles back, or maybe 4. She was wearing boots, but the supple leather and 3-inch heels weren't meant for this kind of weather, much less a rigorous hike in it. She gazed in the opposite direction. What lay ahead on the road she'd been traveling? Her luck, it would be miles of nothing but more maple trees and snowdrifts. She'd survived the accident, but quite literally, she wasn't out of the woods yet. Tears stung her eyes, and her breathing grew labored as panic kicked into high gear. What was she going to do? She had a deadline to meet. Caro thought she heard bells, a rhythmic jangling from off in the distance. She dismissed the sound as the product of the wind in her own imagination. A moment later, though, a man on horseback appeared at the bend in the road. The rim of his hat was covered in snow, as were the broad shoulders stuffed inside a tan shearling coat. He looked like something out of a dream, a fantasy, she amended, as he drew closer and his ruggedly handsome features came into focus. Deep-set eyes of an indiscernible color, angular cheekbones and a shadow of a beard on the lower half of his face. Caroline's heart knocked out an extra beat at the same time her knees gave way, and she sank into the snow. Clearly she had died. Jake wiped a gloved hand over his eyes after he spotted the woman. She was a vision, had to be. No one in her right mind would be out in this God-forsaken weather. The only reason he was out was to work off the worst of his temper. And he'd had the good sense to tramp about on horseback. The big animal knew her way back to home and shelter even better than he did. When he saw the woman collapse, he was out of the saddle before his horse came to a stop, trudging the half-dozen steps through a knee-deep drift to reach her. He crouched beside her, resisting the urge to scoop her up in his arms. Protect and serve. A lifetime ago, those words had been part of his daily mantra. No longer. Lady? Hey, lady. His words sawed gruffly through the wind. Are you okay? She gazed at him with glazed eyes and a look of terror and revulsion. He wasn't insulted. He'd had that effect on people before. But then she did something that shocked him to his core. She raised one shaky hand to the side of his face and asked, "Are you an angel?" The question took him by surprise. Jacob had called a lot of things during the past year. Angel wasn't among them. Not even close. I thought... Are you hurt? She blinked, frowned. I guess not. You're sure you didn't hit your head or anything? He glanced past her into the car and noted the deflated airbag. It had saved her from greater impact, but that didn't mean she hadn't sustained injury. I'm okay, she insisted. As if to prove the point, she struggled to her feet. Jake rose with her. The woman was taller than he'd first thought she would be, given her otherwise delicate appearance. Not delicate, he decided, fragile. There was a difference. The top of her head came even with the bridge of his twice-busted nose. He couldn't see her feet through the snow, but he'd bet she was wearing heels.